Hello and welcome to the next episode of the subjective vlog of a forensic auditor. Today I'm gonna walk you through the PEACE model, which is the British model of forensic interviewing, and this will be the course for the beginners and will last for no more than 10 minutes. First of all, I would like to tell that forensic interviewing, in fact, otherwise called an interrogation, can be fun and it's very rewarding. First of all, when we say we interrogate a suspect or a witness, in fact, we are seeking the truth. We are getting to the truth. And one of the most recognized models for the truth seeking, in fact, is the PEACE model, which was brought to the United Kingdom as a result of a review of the performance of the police force, the performance in suspect interviewing in 80s and 90s. And this model then was broadly distributed across all the forensic teams, not only working in the police force, but also in private sector. So in fact, all big four companies are also using this model in their daily routines. So the PEACE model is in fact the acronym for actually 5 words, which is the plan and prepare, engage, account, closure, and evaluation of our meeting. The first and the last phase are actually the phases where the suspect or the witness is not present. Where in engage, account, and closure phases, in fact, we work together with our witness or a suspect, seeking and looking actually for answers to our forensic hypothesis. So let me continue. Plan and prepare phase is in fact very, very important. Some say if you fail to plan, you are actually planning to fail. So we have to be prepared. Preparation is a key to successful interview of a suspect and also a key to the successful interview of a witness. So so basically, when we prepare for the interview, we actually have to ask ourselves a few questions. First of all, and the most important, predominantly, we need to ask ourselves, what are the theories that we are going to verify? So when we started our investigation, when we had, for instance, a report from the whistleblower, the whistleblower brought some hypothesis or some statements saying that, well, for instance, a fraud had been committed in our organization. And basically, this might be or should be our first working hypothesis, saying, yes, there is a potential fraud, and obviously we have to ask a few questions beforehand. Who may have committed this fraud, where, when, how, and where. So technically, once we have the answers, we can have our first working hypothesis. But obviously, we cannot stop at one hypothesis, because then, well, that would be an assumption. And basically, some say when you assume, well, I will not work out this acronym, but basically you may actually end up with a very unsuccessful investigation. So technically, we should not stick to one idea. We should be open for parallel concepts of resolving the case. First, before actually meeting with our witness or a suspect, we need to understand what are the theories that we are working on. Secondly, we need to answer the question what we already know. So what the documents, data, and other prior interviews brought to us, and actually what do we know about the case, and what are therefore the gaps that we are seeking to close during our interview. Obviously, we need to understand who we are going to meet, so whom we are meeting, what is the background of this person, what is the experience, the education level, who is the person we are meeting, and what is the position of our interviewee. Do we speak to the senior level official or maybe junior person, because this may affect should affect our expectations in respect to the following meeting. And obviously we need to answer the question, what is the role of the person we are meeting? So we should not go and plan for a meeting with a witness where actually in fact we are going to speak to a suspect. And obviously, last but not least, we need to understand where are we going to meet, because for instance, meeting a suspect in his/her office may actually keep this person in his or her comfort zone, and therefore it may be more difficult to challenge such person, and this person may feel too comfortable actually to provide us with the answers to our questions and to provide us with the true and fair view on the matter that we are investigating. And secondly, we need to understand who is gonna be our second interlocutor, so the person who will accompany us in our interview. Once we have all these questions answered, we can move on and in fact carry on with the interview. And we move towards the engage phase, which is a very, very, very important phase in our interviewing process, because without building a proper rapport, we may actually be in trouble. And I'm serious here. So we need to start with a small talk that helps a lot. We need to be prepared for a small talk. Once we do the background check on the person we are going to meet, we may see that, for instance, the person is his hobby is, I don't know, horse racing or whatever, and then we can actually start with some comment regarding horse racing or recent tennis match that took place, let's say, yesterday. And having this small talk, we can break the ice, we can actually build good atmosphere for the following meeting. Obviously, we need to introduce ourselves, and remember, the first seconds of our meeting actually is building the perception of ourselves. So we have to be prepared, we have to be confident, and we have to actually make a good impression. Even the clothes, the way the stuff we are wearing may be of importance. So we have to be properly prepared for this meeting indeed. And the next point is the introduction of the purpose of the meeting. The fact is that not always, not in every setup, we have to actually tell the real purpose for everyone. For instance, if we meet a suspect, not necessarily we have to say where we are investigating your wrongdoing. We need to have some plausible explanation why we are meeting, but not necessarily start with the fact that there are certain allegations against the person, because that would not actually build a good rapport. And fortunately for us, we are not in criminal investigation, so technically we do not have to start with the charges of against the person. And last again but not least, we need to explain the trivia, the rules of engagement. So for instance, how long this meeting will last, or whether, for instance, we should switch off our mobile phones, which in fact usually is recommendable. Once we are done with the engage, we have the report and we are ready to go, we can kick off the account phase and actually let the interviewee speak. We need to actively listen, we have to be silent, but monitor the pace of speech, the body language of a person who is speaking to us, and the content of the message, comparing the content with the knowledge we already have about the case, and look for any discrepancies. And we need to be actually very vigilant in this respect. So we cannot actually think about ironing in between. We have to be focused on what is being told to us. Obviously, we need to show our interest and respect with our body language. So, for instance, leaning forward, a gentle smile or a nodding will actually help to show that it's interesting what we are listening to, and definitely it will help the person who is talking to us to actually also keep engaged and tell us whatever we need to hear from that person. We also need to rephrase, because when we rephrase, we actually also show our interest in what is being told. And obviously, once rephrasing, we are also clarifying what might not be clear for us during the interview. And obviously, we need to summarize so that no doubts are being left behind. And finally, last but not least, we need to, it's advisable to get yes at the end of every summary, so that we have the confirmation of the key messages, key deliverables of the meeting, and more importantly, getting the yes, we sort of zip or get the confirmation that then it's difficult to deny in the following in the course of the meeting. Once all we need to know, or we believe we need to know, is set, we need to move towards the closure phase, which is actually the moment where we ask the interviewee whether the person has anything to add, and also to introduce the person to any next steps that are going to happen. We also need to remember about the facts such as the confidentiality of the meeting, if the person needs to keep this meeting and the topic of the meeting confidential, and also remember about the record keeping rules. So if we are going to draft a summary of the meeting, we need to inform the person what we are going to do with it, whether we will need some signature or confirmation of this record of the meeting or not. And finally, we need to thank for the meeting, because remember, the person, actually our gratitude is important, because the person spent time with us, the person provided some information which might be crucial for our interview, so for our investigations. So technically we should actually say thank you for that, for the time, for the effort, for the support provided to us, because it's worth it. And it was definitely usually was also had been very stressful for the person who met us, so technically it always helps, and it also leaves a better impression after the meeting. And technically it may be also helpful with the coming or the next meetings that we plan during our interview. And finally, we move on, and that's the end. We say goodbye, we thank for the meeting, and we leave the room, or the person leaves the room, and then we can start, or shortly afterwards, we can start the evaluation phase. So technically, we summarize what we have heard from the person, whether the information is consistent with our prior knowledge, whether there are any leads to follow. So, for instance, new witnesses, new evidence that we may seek to either discover or review. And we ask ourselves whether there were any contradictions with prior findings in our investigation. And finally, we need to plan. So again, planning phase, the next steps in case the interview brought anything new or contradicting that needs to be followed up. Finally, we need to assess ourselves. So technically, how did it go? And what can we do better? So technically, the feedback 180 and 360. So, sorry, the interviewers need to assess themselves, one another, and themselves, and actually see what they can do better next time. And remember, perfection does not exist in real life. So technically, don't be too harsh to yourself. That's it. So thank you very much for your attention. Have a great afternoon, morning, or evening, depending when you spared some time with me watching this material. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your time, and please bear with me and see you in the next episode. And goodbye.